Hello, dear class. I want to talk to you briefly about Long Day's Journey into Night. This is my last video to you on the subject of our syllabus. Maybe I will speak to you again on the subject of the final. But this is our last quiz about a play and about tragedy. So here is a play which was so painful to its author and so, well, they say semi-autobiographical. It's pretty damn autobiographical, is the truth of it. Although he deftly makes a child who died at only 2 or 3 years old, killed either deliberately or inadvertently by one of the child's brothers, the boy's brothers, who deliberately wanted him gone, as a child didn't want another child. So Eugene, the dead baby, incarnates the author's presence and his absence, in the sense that the story of Eugene is the story of somebody stifled by this dysfunctional family before they even come to know that it is as dysfunctional as it is. So it cost him terribly to write this. It was even more tortured than writing the Hickey play, The Iceman. And it was set like The Iceman. He went back 30 years to find a moment for it. It's set in 1912, in the year of his most desperate degradation and most suicidal feelings. And so it doesn't interact with the world, with society, in the way that The Iceman does. It's just the core of a family disintegrating before your very eyes. And as I've said in an email, perhaps to one of you, I think, I remember reading as a teenager that O'Neill would come down in the morning after writing all night with his eyes rimmed red with tears. It was so intimate and personal and painful a play to write. It's written in blood, and I think you can always tell when a play is written in blood. And that's one of the reasons I think it has been one of the great successes of 20th century theatre. So it's an extraordinarily painful play to read. It's very long. It lasts pretty long. I've seen two productions, two of the great American productions of the last 35 years. One was, rather surprisingly, with the movie actor Jack Lemmon, a comic actor, playing Tyrone, playing James Tyrone, but with an excellent cast. And the other, I saw that with my father 4 years before his death, and the other more recently with Vanessa Redgrave playing Mary the Mother, and with extraordinary performance from Seymour Hoffman as Jamie, and also a wonderful performance of the actor who played Edmund. It was really, it was pretty splendid. But this second production, they took it so fast. I mean, that's in many ways better than taking it too slow. But they took it so fast that when I came out to the interval, I hoped to amuse my rather celebrated company who came with to this production, not just the one with my father, by suggesting to them that, in fact, perhaps the drug that they're all so anxious that the mother is taking, which is never specified but is understood to have been morphine, that the drug was actually speed. Because that's what it looked like. Oh my God, they're all terrified. They're all working at unbelievable speed to try and keep up with her and give the impression that there's nothing abnormal about the incredible pace at which she speaks. So that was a curious experience. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of the great actors of the 20th and turn of the 21st centuries. And he was astounding as Jamie, and it was possible to see how you could steal the play as Jamie, which is interesting. It often seems to be Edmund's play if you get the right actor, and Mary's play if you get the right actress, and certainly Tyrone's play if you get a sufficiently extraordinary and dominant actor playing the father. So it's highly personal to me, the play, in that way, having seen some memorable productions and having been raised and dreaming of being a writer and wondering whether it was absolutely essential to be in floods of tears as you wrote. Um, I'm not at all sure that it is. I think if you don't reach deeply into the characters and in doing so into yourself, uh, I can't imagine you'll write anything of worth or interest. But uh, I think that if you're crying, I have there are several uh, moments in my books which are quite lachrymose for me, but they're lachrymose because I've kind of fallen in love with the characters, and then something terrible happens. Usually they die, and I'm in the aftermath when I read it again. I am in tears, but it's rare, and to be in tears uh, when you're actually writing it, because I experience this when I reread it. I'm moved by. I love the character. I now realize so much, but at the time you want to both love your characters and control their outcome because they're figments of the imagination. And if you're in tears, this means that you're probably writing directly from experience, which would make you cry, but is not, I think, on the whole, a course to be recommended. The only, ever repeated recommendation by people who teach creative writing, which is a ridiculous idea. You can't teach it. I say it as somebody who tried for many, many years, did my best, but you can't. And the one thing they say to you is write what you know. My experience of teachers is that the best thing to do is to do exactly the opposite of what they recommend. Not just the opposite, but exactly the opposite. To assume that they have got not just the wrong end of the stick, but completely the wrong end of the stick. And I would say, as a writer, start with what you have absolutely no knowledge of whatsoever. And in doing so, exclude material that you can't judge as to whether it's interesting or not. But if you start writing about a white rabbit on the banks of the Orinoco, you have to figure out how the white rabbit got there, unless, of course, it's all a dream and that you discover that on page 2. You have to invent. You have nothing to rely on. And invention, in my life of 50 years of writing, is the only part that you can trust. If you want to produce something that feels like your own, don't go anywhere near your life. Go in the opposite direction. Find an imaginary world. Invest it with the same truth that you know from the reality you've experienced, and proceed in that direction. However, many great works have been written by people writing precisely about their own experience, and also innumerable very bad pieces of writing. So you have to gamble. Go with whatever you think. Long Day's Journey is clearly written in blood, as I say, written in extreme pain, in the memory of what it was like to be raised in that crushing household, with its theatrical elements. Both the father and Jamie, the elder son, are involved in theatre. Mary is actually appalled by theatre, but is totally enthralled by her husband 35 years before, and to some extent still something about this great actor, or this extremely successful actor, holds her in thrall. And yet she recognizes that it's not gold, it just glitters a lot. And at the end of the play, she discards the glitter that has seduced her for 35 years and returns to a much, much earlier moment of her life when she was about to dedicate her life to a different kind of glamour and a different kind of glitter, as a pious young woman. And and she sweeps the stage clean of everything that family has brought onto it in its raging agony, and returns us to a moment when she was, as she says, happy for a time. So here are some wonderful parts for people to play, and that is one of the great secrets of playwriting. You must find some huge roles, and even if there's a lot of small roles, as in The Iceman Cometh, and you have to wait a good long time for the huge role person to arrive, as long as there is one giant meaty role, that's essential. It's ultimately it's a star medium. Lots of theatres survive outside that orbit of stardom, but they survive on modest pickings, audiences who are not there for the thrill, but there for the literature and the beauty of art, the acting. However, you would be wise to write some meaty roles, like the four big parts in Long Day's Journey, because if somebody announces that there's going to be a production, and I'm sure there'll soon be another one on Broadway, they're relentless. It happens every 2 or 3 years. There's no problem casting wonderful actors. And when you cast wonderful actors, if you've got Vanessa Redgrave in the cast, or Jack Lemmon, Brian Dennehy was, I think it was Brian Dennehy who played the father in the production I saw with Vanessa. If you have them, people will come and see it, even if, as they say, they're reading the phone book. You'll get an audience. So just like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Edward Albee's ingenious reworking of An Evening for Four, their roles are so great that you can cast them any way you want, and you can get an audience for sure. So that's one of the secrets that O'Neill certainly understood in putting this exhausting play together. Unless, as I described the Vanessa Redgrave production, unless you play it at such speed that it's almost impossible to stop to notice the bullet holes in your vest and all about your person, because you've moved on so fast. Forgive me for saying this, but this is the key to Donald Trump's success, is break things and move quickly. If you move fast, then nobody can keep up with the scandal. And it's the same in this play. It's hard to keep up with the horrors of the behavior of these people towards each other. It's immediately replaced by shame and affection and regret, and then on to the next horror. It's such a continuous switchback. Oh, there's a lovely deer out there at the end of our backyard. Just as they do, just nosing its way along in front of the green fir saplings. It's so pretty. Yes, the four tearing each other apart. And when you look at it, you think, that's too much. The switchbacks are too great. In one speech, every character reverses completely from love to hatred to love and back again. And you think, how do you play that? How can you play that? Well, one answer, of course, is very, very fast. Anyway, it is a kind of tragedy à quatre, a four-way tragedy. If you can classify it as that. I don't know that Aristotle would have been too happy with four tragic heroes. Maybe none of them are tragic. Maybe they're just all pitiable. But we are all pitiable. None of us, I think, can genuinely claim that we aspire to be tragic. But we are all kind of pitiful and pitiable. And it's upon that, I think, that O'Neill depends in his depiction of these characters and in his hope that people will come to the theatre and see their grief and their crucifixion. So I hope you managed to make your way through it. Some of you made your way through Iceman, and after that, which is the Everest of reading, even Long Day's Journey is bearable. Thank you, and thank you for the semester entirely for accompanying me on this delightful trip through tragic literature. Bye now.